Hey, how's it going? Lewis from Myco Buddy. I'm going to be showing you here how I cultivate wild specimens. I found some reishi off of Wurzbach Parkway here in San Antonio, and I just took a few pieces from the growth that was there because I want to see how big, the actual fruits get there. There was quite a few, but I only took a few pieces. This is plenty of material to work with. And I got my plates here. I poured these like 2 days ago, and when I store them I just use masking tape just to keep them sealed, and it's fairly inexpensive, and it actually sticks. I don't like wasting parafilm on these when I store them, but I do want to keep them sealed so they don't get any type of contamination or anything like that after all the work that goes into pouring plates. Then I have my alcohol lamp here, which is, I don't know if you can see the flame, it's burning there with denatured alcohol. Then I have just a pair of tweezers and my scalpel. I've already sterilized my scalpel over the flame, but I use this as I transfer pieces of tissue and move back and forth between here and the plate. I always want to sterilize my scalpel because this is a wild specimen, so there's all kinds of bacteria, endospores, and all kinds of things embedded in this tissue here, and that's why I'm going to take a couple different plates of these, so hopefully I get a good clean tissue run, and then I can isolate from there and hopefully get these into some mushroom kits. So that's my little setup here for this process. Got my gloves, alcohol, got my live specimen, agar plates, my tweezers, scalpel, and my alcohol lamp. I use these tweezers just to keep this elevated from touching the surface here because I want this scalpel to be clean. And so now I'm going to show you how I take tissue from these pieces of fruiting bodies. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to alcohol my hands. Make sure you don't do this near that thing, like spray in front of it, because alcohol and flame mix very well if you want to start a fire. So I'm going to take the tape off my plates. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a separate scalpel blade and I'm going to cut into the piece of fruiting body, and then I'm going to use my hands to tear it apart. I don't want to cut the fruiting body from the outside, because basically what I'll do if I cut into it, I'm going to cut and I'm going to drag everything that's on the surface, I'm going to drag it into that cut and risk introducing more contamination into the tissue that I'm going to be sampling from. So I kind of just want to break it apart. You don't have to use this, but reishi is pretty tough, so I'm just going to have this here in case I need it, but I'm going to try and tear it apart by itself first. Just a bit closer. So let's see if it'll probably do autofocus on me, but so this is what the inside of it looks like. All this white tissue right here, this is all fresh growth, so there's no red that you usually see. So I think this will tear apart fairly easy. So I'm just gonna rip it apart, and I'm gonna take tissue from inside of here. And I prefer using the scalpel blades for taking tissue samples as opposed to the scalpel spear, because the scalpel blades are way sharper and they cut way better, especially when you're working with reishi. super tough tissue, so I'm just gonna take a little piece like that. I'm gonna place it on my plate, just like that. And when I do these tissue samples, I usually run 3 or 4 sectors on it, just to be economical with my plates. Because if I put one piece of tissue in there and it gets contaminated, I'll waste a whole plate. But if I have 3 or 4 separate little sections, I can increase my success rate, and I can isolate from those sections a bit easier and not have to waste a plate. So I'm just going to do 3 on here. Come on now. That's being kind of a pain. To drag it into the agar to get it off the scalpel, but alright, well, that's not working. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna wipe it off and reflame it. Try again. Tear another piece. Look at that. Beautiful. Before I touch the tissue, I'm gonna pull off my scalpel. Let's see if I can get here. And sometimes when I put the piece of tissue down, I kind of drag it into the agar so it kind of sinks into the agar a little bit. And so that way when I move my plates around, the tissue doesn't roll around and get lodged out of place. And so this is how I add the tissue to the agar. Then I'm going to grab my parafilm. And I usually have it cut up in little strips like this. I use the, I think it's the 2-inch. Yeah, it's the 2-inch size. I do 3 lines and I cut it down the middle just to save on it. Alright, take my parafilm. I'm going to take this side. I'm going to take this side and I'm going to place this on the edge of the agar plate. And I use glass plates to be kind of economical. These are a little tricky. You want to get the actual bottom plate kind of centered because they kind of shift to the side and there's a big gap. And so, let's see if you can see this here. I usually use 2 fingers and get the center of the parafilm on the edge so that way it grabs the top and the bottom of the plate, and then give it a gentle tug and stretch it out. And then wrap it around. And come, oh, just like that. And that was why I was using the masking tape to seal them up, because this parafilm slips if your plates are wet. And these are a little wet because they were just highly condensated because they were hot. And there you go. So now I got a nice seal around the edge, all the way around here. Right. And sometimes if you don't get it right on the center, this will slip off and you'll get a crack of open a space between the bottom and the lid, and that can, you know, cause contamination. So you want to be careful with that, and it'll dry your plate out a little bit faster. So that's how I take a tissue sample. Then once I have the pieces of tissue on the plate, take my marker and I'm going to mark, I'm going to label this plate so that way I know what's on the plate. So I do Reishi, so GL, Ganoderma lucidum, and then I'm just going to do WZ for Wurzbach. I like to just put a little short abbreviation of where I found it. And then today's date is 12/6. And then at the bottom, well, actually over here, I put the generation, which is G0. I'll explain that a little later in another video. And then PDA, potato dextrose agar. So this is made from just some boiled potatoes and some agar, and I threw just a little bit of azomite in there for trace minerals, and that's my agar formula for this round of plates. I usually change it up and I mix it up with different things, but that's what I use for here. And so this is how I take a tissue sample from a wild specimen. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check back in a few days and see how this is growing. Sometimes you'll start to get weird little blobs growing around it. That's usually bacteria that's growing, and so, you know, that's not good. But hopefully I start to get white little threads of mycelium starting to radiate outward, and hopefully I get a clean run on this. And then what I'll do is I'll take a piece of that clean tissue and I'll transfer it onto a new plate by itself, so that way I have just clean tissue, because there's a good chance that these are going to have other contaminants in it, which is why, you know, like I said, a couple different spots on here just to save on plates, because it's kind of time consuming to make your plates, but I like doing it. And so that's how I take a tissue sample. And that's about it for this video. I'm going to show you a couple other things here in the future, so, you know, stay tuned to learn more about mycology and mushroom cultivation.